Walk us through this ruling. Why did the court ultimately strike it down?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court here, the Virginia State Supreme Court, is striking this map down on procedural grounds. They are saying that the mechanism that the state legislators used to call the special session to actually draw this map was invalid under the state's constitution. Now, of course, this session was called by the state Speaker of the House. But in Virginia, in order to call a special legislative session like the one that was used to create this map, either the governor needs to call it or a 2/3 majority of both houses of the state legislature need to call that session. So this Supreme Court is upholding a lower state court's ruling saying that that mechanism for the state speaker to call this special legislative session was invalid. And so therefore, the map that they produced during this legislative session was invalid.
Fallon, walk.
Long story short, they cheated to try and win, and the Virginia Supreme Court said, no, kick rocks. That is against the Virginia's state constitution. So you guys are gonna have to figure out another way to do that, and you're not gonna have enough time at all. I've got a couple of articles that I want to talk to you guys about because it is not looking good for the Democrat Party, and some of the Democrats in the party are actually coming out and admitting it, just saying it, right? Anonymously, of course, right? But they're saying it. And I think that is huge, huge news. So let's hop right on into it. This first article I have is from Politico, and it says, Democrats just lost the redistricting war. And I think that is quite the understatement, if I do say so myself. They have started something that they could not finish. Their behinds have wrote a check that they cannot cash, okay? Republicans just won the redistricting war and boosted their slim hopes for holding the House. The Supreme Court's gutting of the VRA last week, coupled with Virginia's Supreme Court striking down a voter-approved Democratic gerrymander of 4 seats on Friday, has all but locked in Republican gains through redistricting in this year's midterms, giving them as much as a 10-seat boost, with November rapidly approaching. And actually, I think that 10 seat is actually 12, just an FYI. It's leaving Democrats despite all the political wins in their favor, fearful that the House is back in play. Their once surprising comeback in the redistricting race was shattered in the courtroom, and they are left with virtually no way to respond before November. That is big. That right there is big. Not going to be able to flip it. I want to come down here a little bit because there's also something that is huge, and it's this. But the past 10 days have given Republicans new life. The Virginia court ruling means instead of being able to bank on picking up 4 new seats in the state, Democrats will now have to spend heavily to flip 2 or at best 3 seats this cycle. That's after they already spent more than $60 million on the ballot measure the court just annulled in a year where the GOP has an overall fundraising edge. So they've wasted money, okay? Absolutely burned through money, and we're going to get more into that here in a second because some people are even questioning Hakeem Jeffries and his decision-making skills, which, kind of late for that, ain't it? But they burned through, I've heard reports of up to 100 million, but most reports are between 60 and a little over $70 million on something that gained them absolutely nothing. In a time and in a year where they're already behind in terms of fundraising, which is kind of interesting too, because last time I checked, they spent over $2 billion. I think it was $2.5 billion on Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. And now all of a sudden that USAID is basically shut down and Act Blue is under investigation, their big donation platform. Now they're struggling for donations. Kind of interesting. It's almost as if they were laundering money, shall I say? Laundering money. And they're in debt and just blew $60 million for no gosh darn reason. That money now needed to shore up their House chances could force Democrats to make some hard financial choices. Yeah, not looking good. Not looking good for the Democrat Party. Now I want to go to Axios because Axios came out with an article as well. And as you can see, it says House Dems despondent over sickening Virginia decision. Okay. I want to read what some of these Democrats are out here saying. One Democrat says, California and Virginia were supposed to be our bigger ones. One House Democrat speaking on the condition of anonymity to avoid getting out ahead of their leadership said in a phone interview after the ruling was released. Yeah, there's some honesty for you. Those California and Virginia were supposed to be their big ones, and one of them is off the table. This means we got to make sure we have a good wave to win the House. We have to make sure we win a lot of those toss-ups, the lawmaker said. Democrats now have to pitch a perfect game. And what are the chances of that? What are the chances of that? Slim to none. Another House Democrat, also speaking on the condition of anonymity, offered a one-word reaction in a text message to Axios. And he said the F word with an exclamation mark at the end. If that don't tell you everything you need to know, then I don't know what will, baby. Hakeem Jeffries said, we're exploring all options to overturn the shocking decision, no matter what it takes. I ain't paying attention to Hakeem Jeffries. He is under some serious fire right now, including from his own party. And like I said, we'll get to that here in just a second. It's going to be deflating for some, but really it's just a reminder that we are not invincible, said a fourth House Democrat. Democrats cannot take a midterm victory for granted, said a fifth, adding that relying too much on the administration's unpopularity and not enough on their own positive agenda could put an otherwise sure victory at risk. Mark Vesey called the ruling sickening and said it is clearly a disappointment. And here's where we get into Hakeem Jeffries' blunder. The ruling has some lawmakers questioning the wisdom of Democrats spending $62.5 million to push the Virginia redistricting referendum, including nearly $40 million from a Jeffries-aligned 501c House majority forward. I feel like this is a colossal waste of resources that will further erode our politics. How many millions of dollars are we spending on this when the DNC is in debt and we have 40 frontline races to win? Yeah, so they're burning through money while they're already in debt. Okay. So yeah, I just don't see how they could possibly get out of this situation. I mean, literally the only way that they could come out of this situation on top is if they pitch the perfect game. They have to be 100% perfect. And I don't see that happening because they're relying right now on the economy. That's what they're relying on. Mainly gas prices, right? That's the big thing. Gas prices, gas prices, gas prices. One, we still have time for those gas prices to come back down. And two, Uncle Trump has not given me any reason to believe that he won't make sure that the gas prices are down before the midterms. I feel like that is just, it's such common sense, right? I'm sure everybody in the Trump administration behind closed doors is talking about, hey, we got to make sure we get these gas prices down, which is why they're scrambling to try to get this Iran situation solved before the midterms, because that is going to be huge in making sure that these gas prices really do come down. And once they do, now all of the talk about the economy is kind of back out the window, you know? And so, and we've seen that time and time again. It was, oh my goodness, the egg prices. See, Trump said he was going to lower the prices on day one. Look at the eggs. And then the egg prices went down and everybody went quiet, right? And also I think it's kind of funny that, you know, Democrats are complaining about gas prices being high for a little over a month now. But when gas prices were high during the Biden administration for years, they had nothing to say about it. And when Biden was artificially trying to lower the gas prices by releasing oil from our strategic reserves, they said nothing about it. But boy, if you let Trump do that right now, if Trump says, you know what, we're going to take some oil from our strategic reserves and try to get these gas prices down, you can bet your last dollar that every Democrat under this sun would be screaming to the high heavens about it. Oh, how dare Trump do that? He's trying to manipulate, blah, blah, blah. But none of them had anything to say when Joe Biden was doing it. I want to play this clip for you. Check it out.
California is estimated to lose anywhere between 5 to 12 seats if they do a redraw that excludes illegal aliens in this next census. And as you noted, some of those folks in California, they're moving out to places like Nashville. They're also moving.
Say that again, brother, please.
Illegal aliens in this next census. And as you noted, if they do a redraw that excludes anywhere between 5 to 12 seats, if they do a redraw that excludes illegal aliens in this next census.
5 to 12 seats. And you know who's actually working on that right now in the Trump administration? Stephen Miller. working on a way to make sure that illegals are not counted. And if they aren't, 5 to 12 seats. 5 and 12. Between 5 and 12. I actually just checked out a young lady. Actually, it was yesterday. Yesterday on the channel. If you didn't see yesterday's video, definitely go and check it out. Of a young lady who is from California, and she mentioned in that video that 70% of her neighborhood was illegals at one point in time. 70% is what she estimated. And so these numbers that he's speaking of, right, if you don't count the illegals in California, they lose 5 to 12 seats. That lines up. That lines up. So this could be absolutely catastrophic for the Democrat Party, because not only is the census already going to be bad for them, right? They're already going to lose seats because of terrible policies. But if there's a way to make sure that illegals aren't counted, they are absolutely cooked. Cooked. Especially with a place like California. Cooked.
And as you noted, some of those folks in California, they're moving out to places like Nashville. They're also moving to places like Idaho and Montana, who are both expected to pick up, potentially Montana, but Idaho is certainly an additional seat in the next census. So let's think of it this way. California loses 12. Some of those seats are going to be picked up in places like Texas and Florida. Now, it might have been arguably a 1 to 2 seat pickup for a place like Texas with Voting Rights Act Section 2 still in place. Texas would have had to draw majority minority seats, probably even a couple of additional ones where there's growth in Houston and Dallas. Now that that's gone, there is no need to draw majority minority seats. You're almost looking like at a straight transfer of 5 to 12 seats from a place like California to Republican-controlled states in Florida and Texas. It's just a net gain. It's a net gain for Republicans in the House. So, that's going to be a massive change. And I think the other part of this, that's operating in the background, ultimately, for a place like California, is the Great Sort is having enormous changes to the politics of places like Illinois and New York and California. People are fleeing and they are contracting. So just one more example. Minnesota held on to an 8th seat that they essentially drew as a Democrat vote sink in the Twin Cities in this last census, even though the numbers indicated that Idaho had already picked up that seat. The census held back the last tranche of data that would have shown that Minnesota lost that seat. That's all really on account of people are fleeing blue states like Minnesota. The population is contracting. There are new states in the Sun Belt and the Intermountain West that are growing, and that's going to be reflected in 2032.
Yeah, and that's a great point that I even forgot about. The last census was botched, and so there are seats that should have already been awarded that haven't even been awarded, and that's aside from the people that are fleeing, these blue states that are already going to add more seats to the red states. So, you take those two things, plus the VRA, part of the VRA being struck down, they are absolutely done for. Absolutely done for. Here's another thing that is huge that I think nobody is really talking about as well, and it's this. Ken Martin, as the Democratic National Committee over the last year, has been defined largely by frustration. So if you don't know who Ken Martin is, he is the committee chair for the Democrat Party. And to me, if you're having frustration with this guy, you're not doing so well, because if you have expectations, if your expectation is a massive blue wave, you're not going to be upset with this guy right now. But that is not the case. Democrats are extremely upset with Ken Martin. DNC members and party strategists I talked to after Martin's podcast appearance said they believe his defensive comments further tarnished the party and brand and deepened trust issues stemming from his decision to cancel the autopsy report. Which, if you don't know, the DNC basically conducted an autopsy on why Kamala lost this past election. And Ken Martin was a guy that before he became the DNC chair said he was going to release stuff like that. And when it came time for him to release the autopsy, because now he's the chair, he didn't want to do it, which I think says a lot. One, it says he's a liar, which that's not surprising from the Democrat Party. That's all they are, right? But then also, I think the reason why she lost is going to be absolutely brutal for the Democrat Party, and there wasn't going to be a way around it. And so that's why he didn't want to release it. But that's just my humble opinion. Y'all can let me know what you think in the comments. The concerns have become so pronounced in recent weeks that some DNC members have privately discussed trying to force Martin out of the job. Like, come on, man. You guys are supposed to be having this blue wave and you're forcing out the DNC chair right now? That doesn't sound like a party that is winning. You know what I mean? Oh, man. I want to come down here, but much of the criticism is about things that are directly under Martin's purview. Since 2025, the DNC has spent more money than it has raised and has more debt than cash on hand. They've spent more money than they've raised. Shocker, right? Democrats always do that. And they have more debt than they have cash on hand. Shocker. Bro. My goodness. The RNC has roughly 7-1 money advantage over the DNC. Yo, so not only do Republicans have a 7-1 advantage, okay, but we have a 7-1 advantage in terms of cash while Democrats are still in major debt. They have more debt than they have cash. And we have a 7-1 advantage on them. Oh, man. This whole thing is so bad that DNC Chair Martin took out a $15 million loan ahead of the elections in Virginia and New Jersey, which I've told you guys about that in the past. They took out millions of dollars to try to win the governorship of Virginia and New Jersey. So when Democrats were out celebrating, oh, look, we won Virginia, we won New Jersey. Yeah, y'all went into debt to do it. Now look at yourselves. And here's the thing. Here's the final tidbit that I'm going to leave you all with. We have a 7-1 advantage. Democrats are in major debt, okay? And now that red states are redistricting, we're shrinking that number of toss-up seats. So now we only have there's a smaller number of seats, but we can just throw all types of cash at, rather than it being like a massive pool and we're having to like pick and choose. Oh man, well, we'll throw some money on that one. We'll throw some money there. We're gonna have to skip that one. That was a little. Now we can just whoosh, because that pool of toss-ups is much smaller now because of the redistricting and the VRA and whatnot. In Virginia having to keep the Republicans there, right? It's much smaller. We have the advantage. Democrats are panicking. Clearly, this could be, and I say this, you know what? I'm calling it. I'm gonna call it. Nah, it's too early. But I'm right there. This could be the fourth time in like the past 100 years where the party in power keeps it. And the only reason why I don't want to make that prediction quite yet is because we still have some time. But come September, I'll make a prediction. If everything stayed the same as it is, I'd say we win. And stuff isn't even perfect right now. I expect things to get a whole lot better. So y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Thank you for tuning in as always. I greatly appreciate all of the continued love and support. Stay safe. Peace and love. I'm out.